Hi, this is Mike from the Command Journey podcast. We're back again with another episode. For our listening audience, we have a great guest lined up for you. And in traditional Command Journey fashion, we're going to let them introduce themselves. So, guest, please tell us who you are.
Good morning. I am Denise Hutchings and I work with AES Engineering.
Thank you for joining us, Denise. We greatly appreciate you coming on the show. So, if you could you give us a little bit of background about who you are and how you came to the industry?
Well, that's an interesting story in itself, and I'm glad you asked because a lot of times the history often trends to what the future is, right? So I started off in the military, so a combat systems engineering from from Department of National Defense. So I've worked with Lockheed Martin in helping to build our frigates and our Navy, our vast Navy repertoire of ships. And then from there, I joined some Fortune 500 companies, along with, of course, being in Alberta at that time. I really worked in the oil and gas industry, variable speed drive stuff like that. And then some more Fortune 500 companies and cabling technology companies. So for the last 20 years, I've been working with multiple different types of technologies within Western Canada and some larger national companies as well. So it's given me a great repertoire of systems and technology for me to be able to do the job I do right now.
Fantastic. A great lead in. So, I'll just ask you, what is it that you do right now?
So for AES Engineering, I'm the smart building and technology lead. And what that means is that if there's an innovative way of bringing our systems together, that's where I get involved.
Okay, that makes sense. And so, for our audience that might not be familiar with AES Engineering, can you tell us a little bit more about the company itself?
Yeah, so AES Engineering is a single discipline firm, and we're the largest in Western Canada. And we're a electrical consulting firm that specializes in obviously electrical engineering, lighting, technology design services for the built environment. So, yeah, lighting, technology, sustainable and innovation, and local building code expertise.
Fantastic. That's a pretty wide range of ability there under one roof. So, I guess what I'd like to start then is as we look at some of those abilities that you have there, when you talk about something that's smart, I think that in the past 5 or 10 years, the word smart cities, smart installations, et cetera, has been bandied about an awful lot. I'd like to hear from an industry expert how you view the term and maybe how that term for you has to be utilized in a specific way.
And that's another great question because the term smart building, as well as integration and innovation, is very watered down in the industry. And it's based upon who is looking for that innovation or who's looking for the integration and who's looking for this smart technology because smart means something different to every single person, right? And what I really have come to the understanding is smart equates to the unification of people, processes, and technology. We're going to mitigate those risks through the unification of those three subsets. And only then do you get a desired result.
Okay. That sounds like a pretty specific challenge in the industry. I'd like to know how, if there are some examples directly, how AU and AES has taken on those challenges at in different vertical markets.
So one of the greatest challenges and one of our taglines at AES is designing a better tomorrow. And what that means is that we're not designing a better yesterday or even designing a better today. It's designing a better tomorrow. So a lot of times what that means is that we are working with the people within our client group to say, hey, technology has evolved. We do too. We need to evolve as well. We need to fill the gaps in our processes with technology because the amount of people, skilled labor force, is not as much as an example, as a baby boomer population where there is a massive amount of labor force, skilled, very, very skilled labor force. Well, the generation behind that needs to fill that labor force with technology and better processes. There is no, there's no other way. And when you take a look at, say, a 30, 35-year-old, they're taking a look at a 1990s technology and going, I have a phone that can do all of this. Why can't my building? So they've grown up with technology, and when they take over a building or have to work with the systems within this building, it just doesn't compute for them. So the engineering community, the consultant community needs to meet that demand and meet also the demand of a reduced labor force.
Hmm. That's a very salient point. I think, especially the reduced labor force point. There was a huge push North America, probably likely in Canada, the same was down here in the US, where the trades were sort of shed as a main or a first opportunity for a lot of folks, and people went off to college and they got degrees. And I know from my time working as an integrator, I worked with a lot of that previous generations technicians as senior technicians, and the numbers had significantly dwindled of younger workers coming into the workforce in through those trades. And so I thought about what you said, and I think it's interesting that you could take that to the next level, which is the generation that comes behind us now. So I would say, whether it be Z or et cetera, the current generation, their expectation level of what technology is able to do is so far ahead of what even our expectation is that technology can do. That is what you're preparing for. That's what you're preparing sites for, where that sort of exclamation of, oh yeah, it just works like this. it,
Exactly.
it just works.
100%. So I'll use an example where I'll go into a client and I'll ask them, well, how do you do this? Well, we've done it this way. And then I'll say to them, how old is your cell phone? And they look at me and they'll say, well, it's, you know what, I got the latest Samsung S22, right? Or S24. And I'll say, none of you have a phone that's over 4 years old. So you're used to that technology. And yet your building systems are 24 years old. Do you see the disconnect? Right? You should be able to have all of that information, all of your business intelligence and reporting at your fingertips. That's the way the world is running right now. And all of the governance behind that business intelligence and reporting doesn't equate doesn't equate to the gap in technology within the buildings and the labor force that is using them. Right? So we have to be smarter in our designs. We have to design that, a better tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so you have likely done several of these designs there. Can you take us through what one looks like, updating a design?
Absolutely. So a lot of them reside around integrating and unifying the people first, right? So I'm working with a health authority, a larger health authority right now in Western Canada, where they have disparate technologies around hundreds of sites. And so we were just hired to do an audit on that and find out what meets it best. And a lot of times they'll talk about the technology. Oh, yes, they're all disparate systems. They all have to be, we're having trouble. We want a unified system. I'm like, well, how about if we start by unifying the people in behind it? IT has a big example, and here's the basic one. IT has to be aligned with how you're going to unify all of the sites to begin with. What is the process? What is the workflow that is working in behind the scenes to make your job easier? If you have to sign on to three different systems at hundreds of different sites, could you imagine just the management of that itself? And then along with that, well, okay, if it's not centrally managed, then how are all your firmware and software updates available? How are all of your new analytics that can benefit you? How are those being utilized in your systems as well? Well, they're not currently. Well, maybe we should talk about unifying our people within our organization first so that we all have a common goal, right? If we have overlapping technology, well, let's sit down and talk about that and come through a proper workflow that enables us to come to the same decision, right? The end result, we have an end result. How do we get there? If we all have a same end goal and even if we're both on different verticals, if we have that same goal, we're going to come together. So it's very important for us to align our goals first within our result to get there. That's basically what I said. Then we can work towards a process and technology.
I think it's a great point. I think it's something that's easily missed because as technologists, we're very focused on the hardware and software pieces of it. we get so used to putting blinders on and just saying, "Oh, you have X problem, I have Y as a solution." When realistically, the problem is way before that. The challenge is really ABC, and we're all the way down here at the end saying, "Oh, I have this golden ticket that will solve all your problems." When I don't actually even know truly what your problem and challenges are. That's really where we need to start. So I completely agree with you that we need to sort of turn face and look back up the road and go, let's go back a bit. Let's just see how do you actually utilize these different technologies that you're building. Where are the rub points, right? Where are the friction points where we can create a unified solution? And then how do we move that forward?
Exactly. Asking those questions, and it is amazing what you will hear. It still surprises me to this day sometimes on what I hear from clients when you get two of them in the room. Now let's go sit down over a coffee and let's talk about your pain points. Well, let's talk about your pain points. How can we come together? It was amazing, and it was very easy to actually do when when this health authority, I put they were I got them to sit down in a room at a table. I went, okay, here we go. You do this, you do this. How can we overlap and find the right solution for you? So it's easy once they all agree that we have a common endpoint, we have a common goal.
Yeah, agreed. So when you look at these rollouts, these uh, topographical changes for multiple systems, how do you leverage partnerships like Commend to get some of those solutions in hand to the end user?
So great question again. Finding out newer technologies. So I subscribe to websites that talk about where companies are headed. So it's one thing to know what the technology is, but it's also another it's another whole level to say, okay, what is this company looking to do? So when you look at something, I'll say company A, which is completely out of the technology realm, and they're investing in technology, it kind of makes you wonder where their business plan is. So I subscribe to a couple websites that tell me where those companies are headed, and I can look into those business trends. And those business trends help me design that better tomorrow. Because if they're investing in technology that we aren't utilizing yet, well, we should probably know. If we're in the industry, we should probably know about that. Case in point, there's quite a few companies that for the first time ever are investing in residential technologies because it's such a large and upcoming industry that those technologies are now driving more of the commercial aspect because of the prevalency. So it's interesting to see who's investing in what technology, who's buying who, and where they're going, right? So that's when we see other companies, when we see larger Fortune 500 companies buying out maybe smaller, insignificant, I'm not going to call it insignificant, but just smaller companies, you have to wonder, what's their thought behind that? And and when you take a look at what their whole portfolio entails, it's amazing what you find.
Hmm, interesting. Okay. So I'd like to sort of ask you the traditional $64,000 question here at the end of the show, which is where do you see your clients moving their budgets and moving their concern items to in the next 5 years? What is the focus when you break down the diaspora that you deal with?
And that's a loaded question because if the people and processes don't change, those those companies or corporations aren't going to move forward in any sort of way. But for the people who are actually looking to migrate and move to newer technologies and align themselves with in a to better position themselves in the marketplace, they're going to have that vacuum effect to bring the technology forward. And what that means is that they're going to unify a lot of their building systems to create that business intelligence and reporting which they don't have right now. So we have operations giving a report to the building manager, we have security giving a report, we have uh, IT giving a report, AV giving a report. Well, that's going to be unified because we don't have that skilled labor force coming into the next generations to give those disparate reports. So that business intelligence and reporting needs to be at the fingertips. And that's where I see the industry going. I see companies such as Command who are saying, hey, there is workflow automation coming, right? We need this workflow automation. How is that going to work? If I have a code blue response in a hospital, how does that equate to a product that can do many different types of workflows? And that's what I do like about Command is that if there's a challenge in a workflow, it can handle it. That is that's good news to me. That's really good news to me because if not, then I don't have the nurse call system talking to security. And that's bad news because for incident response, that's a risk. Everything equates to risk. And so security needs to move from a liability to an asset and risk mitigation.
That's fantastic. Well, Denise Hutchins, I appreciate you coming on the show. I hope that our listeners out there have enjoyed what we've had talked about. Is there anything you'd like to direct them to? Any place you'd like them directed to? If they want to go check out more of what you have to offer?
I think what I would like to do is encourage every team lead or building manager to actually understand, to actually even go out into their own field or into their own organization and go look and see what their leads do and how they do it. And just look at the innovation that's possible and how they can help their teams work better.
Well said. Thank you very much for coming on the show. And to all of our listening audience, have a wonderful rest of your day.